We feel they were because we were not getting data, and then all of a sudden we began to get data.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we were powered down.
No, let
command
me,
module. There was no power to those transducers to begin with, even though
Let
the
me go back to the switch list. They're on panel 5, aren't they?
Believe so.
We might have never pulled those out when we went to the power down system.
Okay, circuit breakers, panel 5, all open.
All open.
So they were all, in the basic switch list, they were all open.
And you have nothing else then that tells you to put them back in.
Nothing else that tells me to put them back in. At 1 hour and some odd, we did go to ECS transducer group 1 and 2, main A and main B. There are 4 of them.
Right.
Transducer temperature, main A and main B, were closed at about 1 hour and 30 minutes. At about
When did you start getting this thing on? About 45
about the
minutes?
time we started the evaporator, it was.
okay, well now that's way in here. Now we had a thing that says ECS waste water and urine dump heaters, 2 of them closed. And
Right.
now Fred, I read this to, or Jim read it and Fred did it.
Circuit breaker, yeah, circuit breaker.
Okay, those things are fairly close together. They're in a different line of circuit breakers, but we feel it could be possible that you got the potable
Those 2
transducers.
by mistake.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
that's part of what happened.
Okay. So we feel that was probably good data, and that says that that we did have potable
In
water.
fact, I got a question here. Why did we ever close the wastewater and urine dump heater?
The heaters to the steam duct are on that same set of circuit breakers, and we didn't want a steam duct freeze up. But if those were in fact open, we didn't need it anyway.
I don't think we ever evaporated.
Yes, we did. Right. The evaporator was taking gulps of water right on through.
It was.
Yeah.
I didn't look. I looked at.
We needed that coolant.
I looked at. I looked at the evaporator outlet temperature there, and I don't know. I guess I couldn't see.
Yeah, we had a good long period of evaporation, and we actually saw quantity decay in the secondary
Good.
tank.
I wasn't looking at that close.
Yeah.
It was cold enough in there that I thought that was the last thing we'd ever have in operation. Was
A little bit of GNN was soaking it up, I guess. The post-landing ventilation valves, were these recycled after you hit the water?
No.
You turned them on, did you then turn them off and cycle them again?
Not to my knowledge. We went down the checklist. Jim read it to me, and I think it calls for it on low, and I think that's where we put it.
Mhm.
Yeah, we didn't we look at it? You recycle from low to high?
Did you, no, the switch to off and then back to low again?
I thought we did look at. We said, well, how do you want the flow in here?
Yeah.
Yeah, we just put it to low. That was all.
But you never went back to off with them?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
Okay,
I thought we might have looked at different flow rates.
We-
but
We've got
didn't
one
need
PLD
much
that's
cool air
closed. One was closed.
Is that right?
And
It is entirely possible, but I don't remember it. I wasn't conscious of it.
what we're trying to do is find out if this thing failed to open initially, or if one failed to close when you move the switch to off.
You did get ventilation when you opened.
Yes.
Did you?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
There was noticeable ventilation.
yeah, there was no problem there.
Okay, we'd like some expansion on your comments about condensate in the command module. We've been running a fairly expensive computer program here for Skylab because we have a very, very cold command module. And we think that
You do the same
unfortunately
thing, you
ran
power it
that-
down when you have it attached or something?
Right, it's powered way down, and we do feel that we'll have condensate problems. And we'd like to know where in the command module we might expect these, and see if we can correlate some of what you saw with our computer network.
Okay, here's the whole story on that is the first night after the incident, we made a mistake. We put the window covers on, and in order to sleep better, because it was darker. Okay, this was a mistake because the next morning, normally when we'd done this, the next morning it'd be a little bit cool in there. We'd take the window covers off, and having electrical components on, it just warmed up real quick. This time the command module never did warm up. And shortly after that, we started getting condensate on the windows in the form of droplets. And then, of course, as the mission time increased, it was a sheet of water on the windows. And then it eventually began to be getting a light film on the structure itself, where you could wipe your hand on the structure and you'd see a light film of water.
All the panels, when we went
All the
back
closeout panels, huh?
Yeah, when we went back in to power up, everything had little
The gauges,
beads
all the
of,
glass gauges,
white
had,
And like the FDIs were all...
film of water on it.
I didn't check I don't recall the floor, but everything on the sides and the forward panels and everything was
There's no
covered.
reason to suspect the floor was any different than any place else. It was just, you could put your hand there and there was a film of water.
Did you have any severe puddling anywhere?
No.
Just a film all over the
Film all
whole
over.
whole back.
Kind of uniform.
It rained a little bit at the start of re-entry. When we started getting G's,
Yeah.
you could feel some drops falling.
Drops coming on you.
Did you find any structure that's cold enough to create some frost?
Fred, on the structure itself?
Or anywhere in the
No.
in the
I
vehicle?
No.
don't think we saw him.
After being on the water, Fred could breathe and you could see frosty breath
Yeah.
still.
Ken, I guess the last ECS question we've got has to do with a limb, and we had no specific questions there, but if you have some things that you think are pertinent that we need to be aware of, we'd like to know about those.
Yeah, there was one funny with the SID circuit relief valve. The ground was getting indications that valve was being moved, and it was being moved, but it was being moved about that much. The lithium hydroxide canister we had jury-rigged lay, for some reason, the way they tied it to the
corner of it,
bar,
that valve.
corner of it laid right in that crevice, and every time a guy'd come down through the tunnel or moved back up through there, he'd bump that box, and that would just barely nudge that valve, but like I say, it just moved at the most quarter of an inch, and apparently that was enough to trigger the micro switch or whatever it is back there to tell the ground it was in another position when it really wasn't.
Okay, so the valve itself hadn't moved; it was only the micro switch.
Well, it did physically move, and I say not sure from the standpoint of the plumbing and
Right.
the orifice back there, it really wasn't in another position, but in terms of indication to the ground, it was.
And we did find at one time a change in the separator speed at the same time we had that occurrence. And we felt that maybe there might have been a change in the pressure drop at that time. So maybe, did the valve go all the way closed one time?
Oh, no.
No,
No.
never did.
Again, well, how is the plumbing there? I mean, the thing physically looks like it has to go 90 degrees to get to the other position, and can it move a quarter of an inch and be in that other position, or does it really have to move that?
I think what you saw from what you described, you saw the valve position indicator. Must have been very touchy. And you
Yeah,
were moving it back
the
enough
telemetry, the sensor or whatever it is, the sensor where that valve is touchy. The valve
Right.
itself is what.
No, you have to move
Yeah.
about 90 degrees.
No, it never moved then to the other position.
Okay, we thought we'd make that lithium hydroxide change a mod to the AOH next time, so.
Another way to save money. Just throw up some plastics and some tape.
That's all we have.
Okay.
Are there some other?
One thing we forgot to cover in EPS, I guess it's EPS, but as far as displays go, we were sitting, during the count, the initial count, we were sitting on the pad, and Fred would be looking at fuel cells. And as we would change from one fuel cell to another, say switch from 1 to 2, the flows and all the readings would be steady for about 2 or 3 seconds, and then we began to get a little oscillation in the flows. And this occurred on all 3 fuel cells. You switch from 2 to 3, it'd be steady, and then pretty soon you get a little teeny oscillation. So we felt that it was some sort of noise in this signal conditioning equipment. And it occurred on all 3 fuel cells.
That's the only time you saw it?
So did you see it in flight after that?
Yeah.
Flight, same thing?
Mhm.
But the initial reading would be steady for 2 or 3 seconds, and then it would just get this little teeny oscillation.
This is was the amplitude was quite small, like maybe up to one scale mark on the gauge. But wasn't really very dramatic.
Hey, Fred, you touched one thing before on the noise, and you mentioned that it sounded like bubbles going through the glycol pump. Is
Mhm.
that as good a description? It sounded like it was ingesting bubbles?
Well, it sounded like an increase in turbulence or something in the flow, and it actually would change the frequency, sound like almost change the pump speed, and it'd kind of go through a little bit of this gurgling and groaning, and then all at once it would smooth out and be running like its normal noisy self, you know, steady state though. And
What was it ingesting bubbles?
I don't know, that
Did
sound
you
that
ever
way to
hear
you,
the
Jack,
chamber?
when it would do that little shuffle it did in there?
Yeah, wasn't particularly noticeable as much of any gurgling sound as I was the change in pump sound, or it was a definite change in frequency. You know?
Yeah, a rattle or something like that.
And it just changed its tune completely. You know?
Yeah, like it was maybe working a little harder or
Yeah.
something.
Did you ever hear this in the chamber run, Fred?
I never heard that in the chamber. Have you?
Well, I've heard
Well, he was been in more chambers. than
I've
I.
heard frequency changes like that before, yeah. I've never listened to one quite that long, but
You weren't told?
You guys got any comment on the food at all?
Well,
This way we get to that, let's, whether we wrap and so forth.
She's out of town, and this is one that's supposed to be covered.
Okay,
Oh, it is? Yeah, I have a comment on the food, if this is the appropriate time to do it, Doc.
go ahead.
I feel that we have a definite improvement on the food situation. I think that we've come a long way since Gemini. I feel now, though, that we have the space in Apollo, even though it's getting awful crowded with high-con cameras and everything, but we have the space in Apollo to look realistically at food packaging, and we're not doing that right now. The packaging of the food, it appears to me that it's done very carefully back at the factory, and that every little spot is taken up and it's jammed in there like we had to do it for Gemini. And as soon as we reach in there for one item, everything comes out at you, and then it's the next hour is trying to jam the stuff back in there again, and you never get it back the way it was packaged. And
yeah, that was one compartment.
that was both compartments. That was the one and also the pantry.
Had its own separate little container.
Yeah, but the thing is that they're packed in there too tight. I think we can try and scrounge another compartment for food in the command module, and package it such that you can get at the stuff and put it back in there again. Make it a little bit more secure than it is right now. Right, the various items in the pantry were packaged separately, but there is nothing that keeps them from moving back and forth once you start moving things out. I also felt that if we had that sort of arrangement, we could perhaps put back some of the debris that we accumulate in food and put it back into the pantry, or at least use it later on in the flight to get stuff back in there again.
I had one other comment in reference to your super leaf valve manipulation, or accidental manipulation. Is it possible that you, or did you intend to move the water separator select valve from a pull to push position? You've inadvertently done that?
There's no way to inadvertently move that valve. You know, it's got a throw about like so, and it's recessed in a hole back there, and
We ever touched
You
it
don't
on?
recall doing that?
no.
But as far as food goes too, I thought the quantity and quality of the food was good. Particularly, they added some orange juice in there, which was the juices were. We just went through the juices like crazy.
You have enough?
Yeah, well, no, we went in later in the flight. We went into meals, and we would take open the meals to get the juices because we were running out of the juices.
Well, this is a peculiar situation.
It was a different situation because we couldn't use the other hot drinks that we had
And reconstitute the.
All the reconstituted food we didn't use.
And after the accident, we made no rehydratable food. We used only wet packs and the cube food, the brownies and the dates and that type of thing, the breads and the spreads and things like that. We used no rehydratable food, but the quantity and quality was good.
Any surprising taste on any of those bite-sized stuff?
The spreads now, that's a nice
Yeah.
innovation, but water separates out of those spreads. When you open them up, the water seems to gather right along
Was one
underneath the
particular-
tin.
One
Yeah.
particular
Ham
spread.
salad.
Yeah, and then the material itself is too dry to spread. In other words, you want it sort of homogenized, I guess, but it doesn't. The water seems to separate out of it a little bit from packaging, and then it disappears when you open it up. It floats away. Then the stuff itself is kind of stiff. It's hard to spread. You have to put it out in chunks. In fact, we ended up eating one of those
Eat with a
things.
spoon, yeah.
eat
They're
with a
right out of
spoon,
the can,
like,
rather than
like
spread
eating
it,
tuna.
yeah.
You know.
You didn't ever eat any rehydratable foods that you didn't rehydrate?
No.
Hey, John, when you get all this information to Rita Rapp and Dr. Malcolm,
Yeah, there were a couple items that it'd be nice to have Velcro, those little patches on everything, and the bread slices, and the ketchup and mustard and all that
Condiments
stuff.
didn't have
Velcro, and when you're unpackaging that and you're preparing it, you run out of hands real quick if you don't have Velcro and everything, because you're gripping the bread between your knees and got this other stuff stuck up all around the wall, and you really need it on everything.
I have to admit, those scrambled eggs were good. I didn't
Yeah.
believe you guys could do that. Scrambled
While
eggs.
we were had the hot, water, and I thought it was
Yeah,
great.
when you had hot water, those meals were fantastic, really good.
Did you guys eat more or less than you probably normally would
We,
on a normal
we've
flight?
logged, the flight plan had logged it. We ate everything that was planned.
Up until the time of the accident.
Until the time of the accident, we
Yeah.
logged it all faithfully, so it's right here.
I think that would have given us about 2,000 calories a day, which is less than what we've had before. I think that's enough food. I don't think you eat any more food than that.
See, Captain Level 1, the chicken rice soup is the one item we were interested in. Did you eat this with a spoon?
Chicken rice soup. Did you eat chicken rice?
I don't
Wait a
know.
minute. Was that the,
There's one thing there that we were a little doubtful about. We made one soup that said, had a package that you open up, and Jack
with a
did it,
spoon.
and it said eat with a spoon, and we were really going to wonder whether you could eat this with a spoon or not, because it was
But
very
it
loose.
worked. It worked.
yeah.
was that chicken rice soup?
Well, this is what we're interested in.
Cream of chicken.
Cream and
soup.
chicken
Cream
soup,
and
but that
chicken.
was it.
Yeah.
That's the one that Jack had.
It was pretty soupy, and
Well, you
really
had it
afraid
too.
to.
I had it,
open
but
that
I didn't
bag
put as
up
much
and dip
water
in
in
there
as they
with a
asked us
spoon.
to.
I was afraid it'd be all over the place, but it hung in there pretty well.
Was there any other that you had trouble with the spoon?
No, I don't recall. We didn't, of course, with a couple extra new items. We didn't use the peanut butter and jelly before the incident, and I didn't dare use peanut butter without water. I've been sticking it in the top of your mouth for 2 days or something. That we didn't really get to look at that stuff.
See, on one or two of the other new items, pecans, tomato soup.
Pecans are great. Tomato
Yeah.
soup, I don't think we got to.
No, we
No.
didn't get to.
You did eat the pecans.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, fine.
we ate the heck out of the snack part of that thing, all the cubes. Well, that's all we ate really, was wet packs, the spreads, breads, and cubes. That's the only food we had.
Did you notice on this, the syneresis or the water separation on the ham and salad, is this the only sandwich spread this was observed on?
I believe so. It's
Yeah,
kind
the
of hard to
tube,
spread that stuff.
we used the tube out of the limb, and that spread, it had a few squirts on you. You got solid liquid
It was,
out of it.
yeah, it was separated before too.
But it didn't get loose like the other.
That canned stuff could be a little bit more liquid. It's hard to spread when it's dried out, and then if there's some way of keeping the water from separating out, it'd be good.
Yeah, that's something you won't have recorded. We did eat every wet pack in the limb, and every drink in the limb, and the spread.
I'm getting hungry, just looking at this stuff.
In case if you're down there and you didn't want to go upstairs and bother the guy sleeping, you just rifle the limb food compartment. How would you know that?
Now, let me ask you a question. All these foods are supposed to stay, say, in a homogenized state and whatnot. How long have they been checked out to ensure that they stay in that homogenized state and you don't get water separating out and so forth?
Well, we check lollies out for 6 months to a year.
6 months to a year?
So this, I'm very interested to go back and check on the lot number on this, and we can follow this up.
These might be 2 years old food you get. Is that what you're saying?
No, these are more recent than that.
I hope they weren't as old as the medical kit. All that stuff was dried up when we got to that.
Are you guys still giving them old gum from Gemini? You got rid of all that?
No, we got new gifts.
Got new batch of gum, huh?
It's in the old package, though. I noticed.
Old batch. Yeah, it stays around.
Yeah, I want to make a comment. A while ago, it sounded like everybody concluded that was oxygen bubbles in the water, and not hydrogen.
No.
Because it could very well still be hydrogen.
Yeah, no, that was not concluded that
Sound like
that
it
was the case.
I guess I made the statement that after we repressurized the tank and the fact that it was cold, that I felt, and that the amount of bubbles had increased, and that I felt that it was probably more likely that it was oxygen.
Just one other, did you notice any molding on any of the bread?
No, we didn't, and we ate it right up to the last. It does, though. I know you can't vacuum pack it. I guess you can. Is that correct? Because when we got the bread out, all the packages were blown up, and it's hard. That's another reason why it's hard to repackage. The only real complaint I think we have is the fact that we can go back in there again, and I think we could do a much better job of packaging food to make it much more easy to get at, easy to return to the particular items. The package is, the way they package it, they look like they're still packaging for that 14-day Gemini mission where they had everything down to a gnat's eyebrow. You know, there was no place to put it.
Yeah, it seems to me there was a comment a few flights back, you know, that you ought to have all the stuff separated out, all the juices in one place and so forth and so on, so you can really get it. You don't really take a whole pack out.
Well, they've done that, Don, in the pantry, but it's the way the compartment is located is it's just all packaged together. Like, you know, they'll set it up here, I guess, when they package and put all the juices in one spot, and they'll come and put all the meats or something like that. And once you start operating in 0G, you pull out one thing, and the friction tends to bring out a lot of other stuff, and then you just can't get stuff back in there again. It's a lot different to operate.
I think the packaging of the pantry, though, is better laid out than the packaging of the main food, B1 down there. And that is when you would particularly the first day, when you withdraw a few meals, you do pull out a lot of other things. They're all, of course, on strings, and you withdraw them. And this is something we launched at 2:13, and we had a sandwich in our pockets and everything, and we had quite a busy timeline. And they had packaged day 1 meal B and day 1 meal C. So when we pulled those out to get to finally our first meal was really day 2 meal A. We had 6 meals ahead on the strings ahead in order to get to the meals that we were supposed to eat. And you might take a look at this. It wasn't really realistic to package these other meals. And then we had to shove all this other extra 6 back in, and that's like, it's rather hard to get because the bread is expanded, and so it's rather hard to get back in.
You needed about 6 hands, you know. You go in there to pull out your 1 meal, and all these other guys would be coming out at you, and you'd be trying to
We had
slam them
6
back
hands.
in there.
6 hands. 3 times 2 is 6.
We had a couple of feet down there, too.
Captain Lovell, any comment on the frozen sandwiches that you ate during the first part of the drive?
On the, what sandwich?
Frozen sandwiches.
Frozen sandwiches?
The ones that were in your soup box were frozen initially.
Oh, they were. No, they were. By the time we ate them, they were great. Yeah, that was good. Well, we had no comment there. Sandwiches were very good. To make a hot dog sandwich was quite an experience. You spread that ketchup on there, you know, and the hot dog slides around. But you can do it. And we come a complete 360. Remember corned beef sandwiches? 4 hours. When I think of all the flaps that went on in that thing.
Okay, let me ask the food people one thing here. What we need to do is have a review, you know, of how you're going to fix it so you can not have to pull all the food out and not be able to get back in. And so we'll be getting back with you on that. And I'm not sure whether something like that needs to be taken to change board or whatnot, but we need to take a look at that, let's say in a couple of weeks or so we can get that all fixed up for the next flight.
I'd be glad to get together with you and give you some more ideas later on when if you can get the volume from the other people, I guess, who handles volumes in spacecraft.
How do you guys interface with the storage? I mean, how do you get the volume you need? You say, look, you need so much space and that's it, and they give it to you what?
I think it's
just
done
kind
in
of
reverse. They said, you've got this much space. How to live with that.
Hey, George, I guess they work with you? So can you see about what you can you give them some more space for this? That's going to be probably the main thing, is getting space. Probably the basic thing is
There's
needed.
more space in the CSM we can get to.
Okay. All right, anything else on food? All right, thank you, gents. So let's go on with the communications then. One question back there.
Yeah, Jim, what was your comment while ago on the medical kit about stuff being dried out?
The afferent in the nose spray was all dried out. The thermometer didn't work. And what else went wrong? That was about all that I know of so far.
Two separate afferent dispensers though that it looked like they had a congealed glob in the bottom.
Turns out to be the cotton, the doctors told us, but there was nothing inside that bottle except that cotton.
Well, see, hey, that's interesting. I like, what was all wrong with the metal kit? Let me get
I already gigged them on it.
I want to gig them another way.
Well, the thermometer didn't work, and we had this thermometer that was exotic. It never did work. We tried it out, and
Fred is 92 degrees.
You're a cool cat, man.
the nasal spray, both bottles.
Again?
Two bottles in the main medical kit were empty. Now, I don't know whether that's not a complete seal, and you get to a 5 psi pressure, that stuff evaporates, but nothing else evaporated.
Well, you see, we had a problem with that before, a few flights before, and they were supposed to fix that and get that all squared away.
Well,
See,
we
that's
checked
why-
that. We looked up in the light to see if we could see anything, jiggled it to see if there was anything in there, and Fred just kept pumping it in his nose, and nothing came out, and Jack gave it a try. And we did everything but cut the container open.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have done that, but we didn't do that.
Nice, okay. What else was wrong with it?
Well, that's just the thermometer and.
What was this gelatin stuff you found down the bottom or something?
Well, it looked like we'd hold it up to the light and looked like a glob down on the bottom. But it turned out that was the cotton.
The cotton they put in
They
it.
packed
They put
with a
it
piece of
in
cotton in the
Okay.
bottom there to
No.
try and hold the moisture,
Yeah.
I guess.
For those.
But it didn't make any difference.
We thought it was packed for Freedom 7 or something like that.
Still say we don't have any medical reps here? Okay. Thank you. Let's go on with communication.
Yeah, I'd like to take it.
Little head break.
Let's
see whether I can-
Lamb question.
Why don't you see whether I can answer?
Yeah, ask the questions and we'll see what we can say, and if we don't have the answers, we'll have Fred will have.
Okay, go ahead, Don.
Okay, we're going to talk about a period of about 55 hours into the mission and about 14 minutes after that, prior to the good lockup for TV.
This was before the third TV.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is where we had trouble getting a lockup for TV.
right. The first question we had, do you recall what the pitch and yaw settings were on the high gain antenna prior to switching from Omni B to high gain antenna?
Okay,
Fred, this is that period right prior to the TV that we had a problem getting a lock on with a high gain.
The LEM TV show?
No, the command module TV show.
55 hours,
Yeah.
we were about ready to use the high gain antenna of the command module for TV. We had problems getting a lockup, and they'd like to know what the pitch and yaw angles were set up for
Well,
that.
look at the flight plan.
As a matter of fact, maybe we get an update on that.
I don't remember having trouble there. The only time I remember having trouble was for the limb show.
Well, that's it. That's around
There we go.
5 hours. That one was. the
High
one we're
gain,
talking
pitch
about.
was 23, yaw was 267. I think that was something y'all called up to us.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. That was
We
50.
more or less wanted it
Breaking
verified.
Yeah, well, I even wrote it in the book.
The next question,
What are you asking me for? I wasn't there. I was down in the limbs, going around with all the stowage and
No,
sheet
no, not
tank.
this time.
No, we were getting the TV camera squared away.
Yeah,
We were
we
getting
hadn't
it
even
cranked
got into
up,
the limb yet.
you know.
We had a problem getting the high gain lockup.
I still can't remember.
Without the line.
I remember all the happening upstairs while I was down
Some
there.
14 minutes.
How many fingers do I have up there?
Yeah.
4.
14 minutes? Around 14 minutes before the TV.
yeah, there was
I
14
know,
minutes.
yeah, I knew we slipped the TV time because we were trying to get that lockup.
Okay. Next
Will we,
question
will we
is,
change an attitude? Were we in a maneuver to go there or something when we first tried to?
no, I don't think so.
We had
Not-
stopped.
Not at 55 hours,
That was on our earlier.
right.
No, this is, no, we were in,
Yeah.
we had stopped PTC.
Well, there's the angles that I guess I set in there, whatever was in the flight plan.
Okay. Do you recall
Let me
what?
ask this question, first of all, you know damn well, are you sure that the angles were right,
The angles
that
were
were
right.
called up?
The angles were right.
Do you remember?
Fidel said so, it's bound to be.
Man, they're the voice of creation,
Blow
just
your
what.
train whistle.
No, I think that this problem, as I recall, we even selected secondary electronics.
That's right.
Yeah.
We had some problems getting a high gain lockup.
I wasn't there then.
No,
I
not
wasn't.
fast.
I wasn't involved in any of that stuff.
Hey, Findale. They were right for the attitude that was predicted, but they weren't at the attitude that was predicted. Isn't that really what the problem was?
Those angles were passed up, I think,
An hour and a half before.
yeah, right, where you
Right.
expected them to come out of PTC, out of, in the high gain antenna region.
What you said is we can't get it to come down to narrow. We tried to switch the antenna to auto and react. The yaw drove from 270 to 0.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, okay, I remember
Pitch
this.
60 to 90.
It seemed like that we were having, at one particular little angle there,
And
when
you
we
were there
go
for
back from
Oh, sure, I
manual
was
to
not.
auto, this
I
thing
didn't do
would
any of this kind
suddenly,
of switching.
it was trying to lock up, and it was some little problem there that we were right at an angle where we were having some sort of interference, and it would try to drive. As soon as I went to auto, the thing would drive. Do you remember that, Fred? I wasn't there. The keep said he wasn't there.
I didn't do any switching to secondary or any of that.
You were over there in the
You did
right
all
seat, and
that.
I was in the center seat, and I was watching what you were doing,
Okay.
yeah. And it would,
gone.
it would
You're not
not.
my shift, huh?
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, we would drive this thing, and it was right around the 270-degree yaw point, I think.
And it would not lock up. It would,
Then you said if the pitch went from 6 to 90. You set the manual at the angles that you gave us, and then you said, I'll try medium and narrow, tracking and manual control.
yeah.
Yeah, it comes back to me now. There seemed to be one place there in yaw that this thing, when we would switch from manual to auto or manual to react, that the antenna would start driving.
And it would drive right over, the needles would go right on over.
The needles just flop over, or
Yeah.
it looked like the antenna was driving?
No, it looked like the
Antenna
needles
rate.
were driving. I don't think the antenna could respond as fast as the indicators were moving.
Those numbers you gave us were about a 0 input voltage to the 2 meters, and it looked like maybe the meter just flopped over those.
But I was worried.
We still couldn't get an increase in signal strength, though. And it looked like it was just a bad attitude, like we were.
But this happened several times. We couldn't.
Yeah.
Well, when you first switched off to Omni B 2 high gain antenna, do you remember what configuration you had it in? Was it an auto or auto react?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I set it up, and I think I hit it in react.
You had it in react.
I
at that
tend to
time?
use react rather than auto.
Okay, then they were talking about the 6 degrees, the pitch varying from 6 degrees to 90 degrees.
Well,
We were
that's the
wondering
same
if-
thing when we would switch.
Yeah.
You'd get both yaw and pitch, the needles would drive
You meant 90 degrees, didn't you? Not plus.
6 to 90.
Yeah, 90 degrees on the pitch.
Yeah.
90 minus 90.
No, I think it was plus 90, wasn't
Was it going towards plus 90?
it? I don't remember. We called down what it was.
I don't recall it.
The transcripts just said 90 degrees.
Let me see if we
didn't
have
know
it.
whether it was plus or
Probably
minus.
plus 90.
We didn't have any of that written in here because we were trying to get locked up, I recall. Fred was in the year on the limb at the time. Well, you must have been someplace, Fred.
I don't know where I was. I must have been sleeping.
This is a 10.
You sure you took him along?
I'm beginning to wonder.
Jack, here's a picture of the mirror. Plus 90 is up here at the
Yeah.
top. Maybe that'll
Yeah.
help us first.
Yeah, I think it was plus 90.
It was going towards plus 90.
I think.
It was going towards plus 90 or went to 90?
Well, the needles just would go to react. The thing would go zap. The yaw would go to 270 or wherever we called 270, and the pitch. And I know that the antenna can't respond that fast. And
No, we went to auto.
when we went to auto or react for
Yeah.
manual, we'd get either one of these.
We set it up in manual, if I recall correctly, with the angles that first of all you gave us, and then we went to auto, and we never get a gain, a signal strength indication, and the needles would zap. And since I'm not the expert on communications and just watching my two compatriots, I was wondering what was going on, and I was worried that the antenna was banging back there. And so.
And I think, didn't we end up changing spacecraft attitude to try?
Yeah, you did later.
Yeah.
You started,
And-
as soon as you started the maneuver, it looks like it banged right in.
It banged right in there. So
Yeah.
it
Were you
looked
on
like
Omni
it.
before you did? Were you on an Omni just at the beginning of the maneuver, and then you switched to the high gain antenna, or were you on the high gain antenna all the time, and it just acquired on its own?
No, I think what we did is that I don't remember whether I had a Verb 64 called up and got a pitch and yaw angles. I didn't. But when we did get an increase, you couldn't get an increase in signal strength or a good increase in signal strength on manual. And then I'd go to I try to get it in while in manual, try to go to medium or narrow beam to get a bigger increase in signal strength, and I couldn't do it. And as I remember, what we did is after we started, we maneuvered off a little ways. I could tune this thing into while I was still in manual and go to medium and narrow and get an increase in signal strength and then go to react.
Did you get the right signal strength going?
Yeah, it finally,
Right,
of course, as soon as you get into
narrow.
narrow, the thing is just pegged full scale high on the signal strength.
I leave the couch for 2 seconds. Everything goes so well.
Yeah, manual mode was okay. It was just that particular attitude we were at and the particular yaw angle that it was calling for. It just seemed like we got some sort of interference or something.
But then when you change the attitude, then it automatically locked up by itself then, is that
Not
right?
by itself. We could lock it up manually.
But auto react wouldn't.
I think Jack
Well-
said he went to auto or react after he maneuvered a little bit and acquired on its own.
Well, I don't know. I don't remember whether it acquired on its own or whether I did it manually. Because we were trying to tune this thing in manually in pitch and yaw to try to increase the signal strength, and then much like we did in the simulator, you could tune it manually, and then go to medium and narrow, and sometimes you'd be after you've tuned it pitch and yaw, you'd be at a point where it would lock up by itself.
Jack, do you remember how many degrees you had moved in that? We told you to go to PTC attitude. Do you remember how long you were maneuvering, or how many degrees you maneuvered before it locked up?
I don't think it was very...
You told us to stop at a roll of 285
Yeah, about
from PTC.
15 degrees in yaw,
Yeah.
I think, and a little bit of roll.
No, we asked you to do the next maneuver. Did you maneuver very far when it did lock up?
Not, as I recall, not very far. And I think I made the comment, it just seemed like that attitude was just bad for the yaw. It didn't come down the ground transcript?
That wasn't true.
Well, it's one thing that's screwy is the damn needles doing like they did. The needles shouldn't have done, regardless of whether you get...
Well, that surprised me too, in my
That thing's
limited
screwed
knowledge
straight
of what
away.
was supposed to be going on. I didn't think that was natural.
You don't recall
It was a
switching.
good angle.
Good.
You don't recall switching to an Omni during any of this part of the time. It was mostly all high gain from the time you switched off Omni B until you got a good lockup for television. It was about a 14-minute period through there.
We did some Omni switching, but as I recall, I don't think that we were on Omnis very long. I mean,
Don, well, let me ask you a question. See, that they finally got the narrow beam.
Yeah.
And was there any other time after that period where they went off of narrow beam, then back again, as far as the data goes?
Not that I
That
recall.
was
Not
the
after we
only
had the
time
television.
they
No signal
That
right
was
now
the-
there.
Right.
Solid.
Well,
We
that
had
was
a good
tried
signal
again.
during
That
TV.
the same condition was never tried again.
That's right.
I don't think we ever had any problems after that locking up. Did we?
No.
Yeah, that's correct. Next time you lost lock was when the door hit the antenna.
Yeah, but they never lost lock again. That's the whole thing, right? I mean, from there on, you was on narrow beam. And you stayed on narrow beam until the door hit the antenna and then dropped back down to wide beam. So
Where-
there's something screwy with that. Hey, Dave, you gonna take a ticket to Mexico now? I was just wondering.
But this thing, same situation existed on both sets of electronics. We tried the secondary electronics, and it existed there also.
Along with the secondary electronics, did you at any time switch the USB-E or the power amplifiers during this period of
No.
time? It was just on the secondary primary electronics switching?
Just on the secondary.
Okay. The other question is, were there any audio noise bursts noticed in the first few minutes of high gain antenna turn on?
I don't think so, Fred.
Where, are you talking about it the very first time?
No,
We're talking about this time period here, this.
Fred don't remember.
He wasn't there.
No, I'd say they weren't.
You
I don't, no. I had a headset on. I mean, I heard all that thrashing around going on up there. I remember switching to secondary electronics.
You do remember, so you were in the couch.
No, I wasn't. I had a headset on. Remember, I
Oh.
had to do the TV show, so I heard all that intercom.
Okay, any further questions on that high gain?
Yeah, I have one more question. It's back at, just after TLI, when you're maneuvering, they require the S4B in the hatch. And during the maneuver, we lost comm for a little minute or two. And then we came back up again, and it looked like we're on a high gain antenna in the middle coverage area. And I think we asked you to, if you're on the high gain antenna, then to select Omni B and let's go to the high gain antenna. The question is, on the way to the attitude, did the high gain antenna lose acquisition, or did you switch off the high gain?
Now, it was in manual, so it
Well,
didn't track.
Now, this
So,
was after we had you, we asked you a question about whether you were manual or react, and you finally didn't. You did give us react, and everything looked okay, and then you
Yeah.
started the maneuver, and then we lost you for a couple of minutes. And then you came up again on a high gain antenna.
this is when we were moving to look at the S4B.
Yeah.
Were you saying it didn't lose lock because it hit the end of its travel? Scan limit?
It looked like the antenna hit a limit prior to the one that we thought it should hit. And we just wanted to keep it, went off the high gain antenna, if the antenna lost lock itself.
How much angle you
No,
talking
I didn't switch till
Oh, it was prior to the scan
somebody
warning,
called
but
it on
maybe
that one.
5 or 10 degrees even prior to that.
Now, we started out where you called and we're losing signal strength, and that's when I switched from manual to react, and then it seemed to track.
Yeah.
And the next time I switched was when somebody called for an Omni. I hadn't changed anything till that.
Don,
Do
you noticed
you remember
anything in
that?
that
Do you
area?
remember hearing
No, I
noise in the
didn't.
headset?
I'll take a look at that and see if you find out that's
No, I think,
normal cause you're concerned.
No, I don't recall.
Do you remember?
The indication I had to switch was from the ground, calling it, not my hearing it.
You were in react at that time.
Yeah.
It just went off, came back again. Went all the way to the game.
You got one
Okay.
I have just one question. Have you had more problems on switching from major stations on the ground on this flight when we were in normal than we have had before?
You mean early in the flight?
Yeah, it seemed like every once in a while you'd switch a station, and boy, there'd be the most horrendous noise on the system until you finally got locked in again, and I didn't notice that on Apollo 8.
Didn't you fly Apollo 8 with the ESPN Sculpture?
It was
Well,
squelch.
yeah. How'd you fly 8? You remember how you flew 8?
We didn't have squelch, did we?
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, that was a recommendation.
When they were in
came out
Earth
of
orbit, they turned
Yeah.
the volume controls down until they were told.
Just a comment, Ed. I just happened to felt that it seemed like it was an awful long time while you were changing stations, and this also occurred later on in the LEM when we were in this sort of oddball attitude that.
Yeah, we had one real bad spell in the limb.
Yeah.
Shortly after the incident, after we finally got things halfway squared away, there was a long period of time when we couldn't get any comm, and I thought to myself, you know, if there's anything we don't want to lose, it's comm.
We can explain that to you. See, the problem we're faced with there is we had the S4B in the same downlink frequency. Okay, and we were trying to offset the S4B uplink frequency one way and the LEM uplink frequency the other way to vary the downlink frequency. We ran into a bit of a problem. And what really happened was is we couldn't move the CCS to the S4B IU frequency as far over as they wanted to. And then when they offset the LEM frequency, they found they couldn't process the ranging data, the Doppler data, which they later found out they could. And there was a big mess going on there. That's when we dropped that comment almost 20 years before, maybe even longer.
Yeah, it was sort of unnerving to.
It was quite bad on that.
Fred was switching everything he could switch, and nothing happened.
No, but
He woke up about this stuff.
But as far as prior to that, Jim, not
You didn't have
more or less. Don, did you know of anything that was different?
No. Okay. I was just kind of curious.
Was this a loud noise or just a noise when the squelch cut in, you could hear the noise in between?
Well, it was the same loud. All of a sudden, it'd come on with a big crashing noise, and it'd stay there, just a big, huge blast of noise until all of a sudden it'd quiet down again. And it just had the feeling that it wasn't anything on board the spacecraft. It was something that
it was obviously a misfit problem.
we're just waiting for the noise to quit again, so you'd be locked up on us again.
Was your squelch enabled? Or do you recall?
I put it. I'd normally had the squelch off in the LEM, and as I recall during this period, it did get kind of bad, so I threw it on just to knock down the noise.
Well, this also occurred in the command module. We also had that big noise.
Yeah. No, I didn't have that squelch switch on all the time either. In fact, I started riding with it off, except a couple of times it got bad, and I just throw it on for that period of time.
Okay, Don?
Yeah, there's one more question during this same period of time on trying to lock up the high gain antenna. At about 55:07:15, there was a transcript that said when we hit 239 degrees at this attitude, it hits some sort of scan limit or something and drops off.
Yeah, that's what it seemed. It seemed to be that yaw angle, that every time we would hit that, you know, we'd try to go to react there at that thing, we'd get those funny motions in the needles at that particular attitude. As soon as when we maneuvered the spacecraft off of whatever the spacecraft attitude, then we were able to get a lockup. But this is what I was saying. At that particular yaw angle, it seemed like it was at a scan limit or something, or some sort of interference there, that every time we hit that, we got something funny.
Well, we have a little trouble distinguishing whether you're in auto or auto react on the ground as far as looking at the tape. But would you say that you were in either auto? What mode were you in most of the time when you weren't in manual mode, either auto or auto react?
We tried both.
You tried both.
What, was there a particular reason why you stopped at 239,
Never
or as you were dialing 239, it stopped automatically?
No, I think that's I think that was fairly close. I think that was the numbers that we were given later on at that particular attitude that we stopped at. And I think those were the attitudes. I think I did a VERB 64, and those were pretty close to the attitudes that gave.
240 and 3.
That was the attitudes that we were given there.
said.
Any questions?
That's all the
Except
questions
for
we
Tom.
have on the command module. Do you want to ask one?
Did you, any
You have any
fellows
day?
wear earplugs in the com carrier anymore?
No.
We wore the normal mold, but,
Well, with the lightweight headsets, then the,
oh, com carrier, no, we did not wear the earplugs.
We gave you 237 and 5, Jack, is what we gave you.
It just seemed like that was just a bad attitude in that yaw. We tried to lock it up manually. We tried to go to auto and react, and that didn't work. When we go to auto and react, we'd get the funny motion of the needles. Try to tune it in manually and go to medium and narrow, and we didn't get the increase of signal strength. So it just told me that for some reason that was just a bad attitude, that we had some sort of interference or something.
You sure Ted wasn't in the way somehow?
But then as soon as we maneuvered the spacecraft off of that thing, we got a lockup almost immediately. Real easy. So that just led me to believe that somehow that was a bad angle for that antenna.
Jim, in the self-debriefing, you commented that the launch phase comm was much better than on Apollo 8. What way was it better? Better volume or?
Better clarity between the ground and the vehicle. Volume was good. In 8, during the high Q phase, it was noise in the booster for some reason would drown out the comm. I don't know whether we had the comm up or not, high enough volume-wise, but on 13, we had comm all the way through the entire launch phase. Very good. No dropouts.
Okay, any other questions?
We've got questions on the LEM side. I'll ask Ari Beats, subsystem manager on communications.
Several times after you got into the LEM, we noticed both, at least two of you talking at one time. Now, some of this was using both audio centers. Now, the question we have is, at any time did you go to backup on your audio control switch and use just one audio center?
no.
No, I don't recall ever going back.
We eventually powered down one audio center in the
Yeah.
power down mode and operated off only one, but in the time we were both active, we were each operating through our separate audio centers.
Okay, so even after you powered down, when both of you wanted to talk, you powered up the other audio center.
Yeah, I powered up the commander's audio. That was the one that we normally turned off, and but I occasionally, towards the end, powered that up to listen to what were the procedures that were coming up.
Yeah, well, we were hot mic there with that SBA mode, and shoot, you probably heard 3 guys talking at times, because Jack was sitting right between us there on that acid engine can, and we didn't have helmets on, so our mics are sitting right out there for Jack to, some of his probably went down the tube too.
That was leading into my next question. At one time or another, all 3 of you talked over the LEM comm. Could you give us some idea of what connections you made? Did you trade headsets, or did you trade umbilicals? Or?
Well, we ended up just trading headsets. We had the way the comm configuration occurred. We took the adapter, CWG adapter that was in our suits, and we plugged it to the LEM communications, and then the other end went to the headset. The third end on the adapter goes to the biomed. That was normally off. Now the adapter itself was taken out of its position in the suit and fed right to the helmet. So normally on the watch station, which was the LMP side, we left one helmet there all the time, already plugged in, and the only thing people did was take the helmet off and give it to somebody else and put it back on again. We had problems with that configuration because we had to place the hoses to the ECS system. One was on the LMP side, the other, the commanders went back up into the tunnel, try to get air up into the command module to circulate that. The microphones, the mic buttons, are not only just wrapped in the system there around the ECS hoses, but they're bolted on there with screws. And you can't separate the electrical comm from the ECS hoses. And this would be one case where we really wanted to do that. We wanted to separate the ECS hoses from the electrical connector. We couldn't do that with the with what we had on board the spacecraft at the time. I guess I tried it with a pair of pliers we had, but the nuts are these shrink nuts. You screw them on and they lock themselves in place.
It's also a Phillips head.
It's a Phillips head on the other end, and we didn't have one of those things. That, so I didn't want to go back into the command module toolkit just to look around and see if we had it. But it'd been nice if we could have separated the electrical connectors from the ECS hoses.
Yeah, just so you didn't misconstrue, when he said the adapter out of the suit, he didn't mean the spacesuit. We didn't strip those out. These are the adapters you use with your constant wear gear.
Yeah, they're called
to the
constant wear
lightweight
adapters.
headset.
T-adapters, yeah.
Okay, the last question I have is, did all three of you use the lightweight headsets while you were in the LEM?
We never used them in the LEM.
Well, yeah, we did for a few minutes, remember, and then the noise, it was just too bad for the noise. That's when we had Jack go back and call out the
When we first got them, we used the comm carriers to cut down the noise level and also towards the end to keep warm.
Right.
That's all we have, Don.
Any other questions? All right, let's go ahead and break. We'll be back 1 o'clock to talk about the
I said, well, I don't have anything to lose, so I entered P52 and let it pick a pair, and it picked a star that had quite a bit of shafts. I kind of feel what has happened is that maybe that 90-degree value in the checklist ought to be revised to maybe 180 degrees of shaft or something like that. I think probably I didn't drive it out far enough in shaft.
Yeah, that's what we suspect. On the original checklist, we just said run. And then the crew decided they wanted a number in there, and I guess the wrong number was...
No, it's a long way out there. I recall on 8 you had to drive it for a long ways before it
150.
Did you look through the sextant at all after you went out to 90 degrees, or did you just look through
Just the telescope.
Okay, because the sextant covers should have popped a little early. They popped before the scanning telescope.
Okay, any other questions in this region? Let's take the translunar coast next. And I don't have anything specific. Are there any P23 questions?
I have a question.
You have one?
Okay. First thing that we noticed that there was quite a difference in the uncertainty of your marking between the first batch and the second batch of P23s. I'd like to know if you did anything different between the first batch and the second batch that you're aware of.
You mean the batch, you mean the marks at 30 hours versus the marks at 6?
Yes.
Okay. No, there wasn't. I used the same technique. The same technique that I'd practiced in the CMS, and that's let the vehicle maneuver, make the auto maneuver, start from the predetermined angles, make the auto maneuver, and I would go into CMC free and use the MIC to get an R line that was through the center of the Earth, an M line that was tangent. And we use that same method. Jim and I coordinated on that. We use the same method on both of these. And the only difference being that there was a there was only one horizon on the second batch, whereas the first batch there was, the fuzzy layer plus a solid horizon layer.
It appears from the data that the substellar point, you didn't find the same substellar point all the time. I'm wondering if you could elaborate on what criterion you used to establish that substellar point.
Okay, what I would do is I'd use the MIC in order to get that M line as tangent to the horizon as I could. And this usually involved putting it up in the sky because the Earth part of it just blotted out the reticle to where I couldn't see it. Okay, so I'd usually put that up in the sky and get it as tangent as I could, and then just move the star down, and when it hit the solid horizon, I'd mark. I don't know any reason except that perhaps with the big Earth, it's just harder to get a tangency with that M line.
Did you use the little indices out on the end of the M line?
Yeah, I used everything is much like we had done up there in the simulator.
Okay.
Any other translunar questions? Okay. I don't know how you're handling the period through the abort and the power up and all that, but there may be some questions involved.
Okay, go right through it.
I don't have any, but somebody else may have. Do you?
Jack, your comment on the brightness, the cost.
Oh, okay. On docking, as soon as we got maneuvered to the, of course we went out and I did the pitch around in SCS. As soon as I got to, it stopped, it got the 180-degree angle, we gave it back to the CMC and did an automatic, well, stopped the translation, got a slight closure rate set up, and then did our bird 49 maneuver, let the roll take. When we finally got to the final attitude, I had the coas up full bright, but the LEM, particularly as we got in closer, the reflection off that just washed out the coas, so that it wasn't completely gone, but it was very, very difficult to get lined up. Till we were about 6 feet on in, and then the shadow from the command module came in, and it was a piece of cake there on it. But we didn't have a very fast closure rate. In fact, I think Fred commented that my closure rate was a little less than what Ken had usually used, and I'd guess at 1 or 2/10 of a foot per second is all we had. We started from about a maximum distance of about 80 feet.
Any other questions? Any questions during the board or the power-up sequence?
Well, we had that computer restart, the hardware restart. That was all it was.
You're convinced that this was just a low voltage restart?
Right.
Okay.
You didn't even lose any time this week.
One comment, I don't know if you've been briefed, but on that, you stated you didn't feel you had pitch control following the thing?
I don't feel that this was a problem. I feel that this, I just didn't use the THC. I was trying to use the RHC at this
No,
time.
it turned out you didn't have any pitch thrusters. The quad C threw out the quad C isolation valve going threw out one pitch thruster plus pitch, and the other one was on main B, so it went out when you lost main B.
The isolation valve was open though, wasn't it?
No,
The time we lost it?
well, this was no, it went with the bang. The
It
quad
closed?
C, right? You lost quad C completely right there. From
We
there
had-
on out.
We had I thought it was B and D secondary propellant talkbacks were barber poles.
Yeah,
And that's associated with the loss of power of main B.
Yeah, but the RCS people have gone through that whole thing. Has RCS been here yet?
Yeah, they've been here, but they did get barber poles, yeah, they were.
Yeah, they've explained it. There's a weird situation there with the barber pole and the loss of power or something. They proved that no fuel or temperature rises or anything was seen in quad C from then on out through the end of the flight. And then the pitch thruster on A was on main B, so you lost it, so there really was no positive pitch, and the venting you had in there
But I
was
thought I
giving
put
you
all the
negative.
thrusters on main A. Didn't you remember me doing that? Putting all the thrusters on main A?
This was, no, for like 4 minutes after the.
Oh, okay, that might have been, until we got squared away, got
Right.
all the thrusters. You did see eventually main A, the pitch fire on main A.
Yeah, well, you went to the hard stops a couple times and
Yeah,
stopped it.
yeah.
And we don't see that. I mean, we can't see it, it's not telemeter. We just have the auto coils.
Okay.
But they never saw the autocoil fire again. You just
No,
have quad C.
they indicated on full, which is the indication when they're powered down. So,
But we did eventually shift all 16 thrusters over
Right.
to main A.
Okay, no other power-up questions. We'll go on to Trans-Earth, Doc Burns. Any questions in the Doc Burns?
Question here. Were any slosh oscillations apparent during the Doc Burns?
Slosh oscillations, no. There was startup transients, but weren't bad. Weren't half as bad as I was expecting them to be. This is the auto burns now.
Right. Another question here. When you were maneuvering to the burn attitude, you're using the TTCA for pitch and roll and the ACA for yaw, Haynes, minimum impulse, correct?
Yes.
Could you comment on the difficulty of doing this?
In maneuvering to the attitude with the air needles was not difficult once you got the little training period to do it. the vehicle, the stack responded quite adequately to TTCA control inputs. And yaw was very adequate. And you could get so that you can almost do a minimum impulse in that TTCA. You could just zap it and just beep it a little bit, and it would work.
Did you feel that overshoot and pitch and roll was any kind of a problem at all using the TTCA?
No, I didn't think there was. You could fly to all the needles without much difficulty. It's very similar. I think the simulator is quite representative of the condition there. Well, that's flying it with the 8-ball powered up. That's not flying that thing with the disky. Yeah. And going to a maneuver attitude that the needles are giving to, they're aiming.
It was easy for the kind of task that we had to do, which is take a long time to go from one attitude to another.
Let me ask you a question. I was thinking about this all the time, but I never wanted to do it. Would that vehicle have maneuvered automatically to the attitude in that stack condition? It would have, huh?
And we kept wondering why they didn't want you to do it.
Oh, we did. We did.
No, well, we did. We maneuvered manually, but then we went to auto for at hold, and it held it in position. But I was a little worried if we had a 90-degree pitch or a big roll or something like that, just how much gas it was going to take. And we knew that we had control with the TTCA, but I wasn't too sure. I knew that when we let it go auto, it put in a big impulse right away, and it started maneuvering because of the mass, and I wasn't really too sure whether I wanted to let it go, whether to overshoot or do something to go diversion or something like that. So that's why we did manual maneuvering most of the time.
Not on the Doc Burns specifically.
Yeah, I got a question on Doc Burns. I guess somebody mentioned to me that you saw on the ground attitude excursions like 7 degrees. And to my knowledge, I didn't see anything like that on board. On that.
You mean initial transients?
No,
Yeah.
after you throttled up, you got the max throttle, you got the 7
We
degree
did the long
after max
burn.
throttle.
Did it damp down right away?
It damped down real good.
Well, it might have had it, but gee, at no time was I worried about it, about the attitude control.
It went out to about 5.5 or 6 and started back down, then jumped back up to 7 and came right back down. It recovered real soon.
Yeah, I never was worried about that.
Is that off the Venator?
Did you see it?
Pardon?
That off the Venator?
Oh, I saw initial transients.
No,
but I
he's
didn't think
talking about like 27 to 29 seconds, somewhere in that period into that burn.
Well, no, that was when throttle up came up,
Yeah, right.
6
About
seconds.
6 or 7 seconds after throttle.
Yeah. The deviations I saw were the early going.
Yeah, you had a real gimbal deviation at ignition for some reason.
It was solid as a rock from there on out.
Yeah, I know. I didn't see anything that would have been, I was worried about.
Jim, when you were maneuvering using the now 20 values on the disky, did you develop any technique that permitted you to do that? Or
Boy, I sure tried. I'll tell you, I got that 1620 going, and I got middle gimbal angle down there, and I said, well, I want to keep that thing 0 or close to it. And so first of all, I went to the old gauge that we had for the 8-ball, that's out completely. Then I thought, well, there must be some combination of maneuvering that would allow us to know which way the angle is traveling, then which way to either to hit the controller to stop it. And I couldn't find one. It seemed like it switched gears halfway through a motion, and it would be coupled. And you just had to play around with it. Finally, you get the yaw or the middle gimbal angle to go in the right direction. And then you look at pitch, and it might be going some other way. And then you did the same thing, the same maneuver a little bit later to do the same thing. It would change the angles completely. It would do something else. And I never did get comfortable about. There was no problem about keeping it out of gimbal lock. I felt that I could horse around with it enough to do that, but I was using gas, and I was a little worried about using too much fuel. And Fred and I sat there for a while trying to just figure out how to do it, and I didn't find a way.
And you feel that if you'd have had a body axis display rather than the ball display, that would have been better?
Oh, yeah. If we had something we could really go by. I've always been hung up with that display anyway in training in that vehicle. it's not as straightforward as a command module.
Excuse me?
It's not as straightforward as a command module.
Okay, when you were maneuvering manually to the PTC attitude following the second dock dips burn, it seemed as though you took a lot more time, more difficult to get into the attitude than it was to get into the burn attitudes for the 2 dock dips burns. Can you comment on the reason for that?
No, I really can't. We were trying to maneuver to the null, the air needles in the vehicle. And I don't know, I kind of thought that we got to I was worried for the first auto burn, the free return burn, how long it was going to take to get to the attitude. And that's why I was hesitant about knowing how far in advance to start the burn when they asked us how much time to give us. And I was surprised actually when we got to that attitude quicker than I expected to.
Is that the one where we're skirting around the gimbal lock? You had to go the long way around?
Maybe that was it. You mean after the second burn? Maybe that might have been it. Maybe we had a screw around gimbal lock. I don't know.
We ended up going a long way around. That's the one I'm pretty sure we ended up.
It is. I forgot.
Was the ATA used at all during that period for pitch and roll control in the minimum impulse mode?
Yeah, inadvertently I did it once in a while. And I remember that I couldn't use it. It wouldn't do any good.
In the PTC spin-up, did you notice any slosh or bending oscillations during the spin-up period?
No, when I put in the pulses, the null pulses, it worked very nicely. I tried to null out those rates on the manual PTC mode that were used in the AGS ball, and I thought I really had them down very pat, and as soon as I got the 12 yaw pulses in there, they seemed to go to pot. So
See, the procedure though wasn't to do that manually. Is that right?
Well, there's 2
No.
procedures.
Oh, yeah.
It was a manual procedure.
This is after the mid-course burn now. Yeah, we the first time we went to an auto PTC, we put in, and that, as far as I know, that worked. Once we got to the attitude, we were in pings at hold. Then we went to pulse on the yaw, put in 21 pulses, then we powered everything down. And that seemed to work. Well, we held there for a while until the ground told us that our rates were low.
In conjunction with that, did you follow that up afterwards and see how much you were wobbling off? It seems to me, I recall you said that you were observing the Earth passing through the landing site designator, where the thing would go through on your revolutions. Were you at all able to determine how far the thing wobbled off? We couldn't tell on the ground because we'd shut down all telemetry.
Oh, well, we could tell. It's very easy to tell if you start getting a coupling in there from a pure roll, or pure yaw rather, because of the view of the bodies as they go by. They wouldn't be in the same spot every time. If you had a great PTC attitude, as you went across, the Earth and Moon would appear in the same position as they crossed the windows. But after a while, we were getting a wobbling effect, and they would not appear in the same spot.
To answer your question, as I recall, some of those LPD numbers I read out would have just about put it up at the top of the window, whereas when we started out, it was coming right across.
Was that the auto or was that the manual that they were doing?
That was the auto. It diverged too, although not near the same degree. And the other body was down. I never saw him go out of the window, whatever that equivalent span angle from your eye makes. So that's
Okay,
about
you never
to the window.
You never tweaked that PTC up at all. You just let the thing go, and it was almost, I guess, what, 20
Once
hours?
we started PTC, in both cases, we never touched it after that. I was afraid, especially in that manual one, if I tried to damp it out, I'd probably get worse shape than it was originally, once we started the element.
Any other questions in the trans-earth portion? Okay, how about?
Platform alignments, you
No, go ahead.
What about platform alignments on the window module and on the command module later?
After the accident?
Yes.
Well, I was disappointed in the Earth, or the moon sun alignment we did in the lunar module, and I don't have any explanation of why the angle was so big. It wasn't that difficult to maneuver the stack. We did it differently than we normally do a lunar module alignment. Normally, I do the maneuvering with my left hand and mark with my right hand, and I can watch the stars go through the reticle. But this time, because we actually had two controllers, one for yaw and one for pitch and roll, Fred did the maneuvering, and I just sort of GCA'd him to get the body going across. And frankly, I have not done a lot of these things. We don't have the capability in the simulator to really do moon, sun, or earth, sun alignments. But once we started, what I did when the body came through, I marked as it passed, as the reticle went right through the center of the body. Then I let it drift on down to the next line, to the Y line, and did the same thing. And we got I think there was a little bit more than a degree star angle difference, which I can't account for now. One problem we did have with the sun was the fact when you put the sun filter on, it's dark enough so that unless the sun is near the center of the reticle, you can't see the cross marks. And you normally maneuver the vehicle so that it's a relationship to the center, so that it cuts across an angle. And it was hard to see just exactly how to maneuver the vehicle with the sun until you could see the center of the XY where they meet. So we had some problems there.
How many sets of marks did you take?
3 on each, normal type of alignment, just like I do with the stars.
Did you mark on the center of the moon?
Yes, I did. I marked as the moon crossed, as a reticle line crossed the center of the moon. I judged it the best I could and marked right in the center.
Do you think landmarks or on the edge would have been better if you had known landmarks?
Yeah, I think it probably would be, because you're guessing at the center of the moon. First of all, you didn't have a full moon, so you had a terminator that you had a judge where the actual horizon, the dark horizon, was to mark on the center. And it might be that it would have been easier to mark on a horizon or a landmark to do that. But I was, of course, at the time only concerned with an alignment that would be adequate for reentry. And I was contemplating even doing it over again, but then I thought, well, we've got something here that looks like it's fairly decent, even though the star angle difference is pretty high. Maybe we ought to just hold what we got. But I think that as a recommendation for the crews, I think we ought to try a little bit more of these type of alignments, and maybe we can get the simulator configured such that we can do these more accurately.
Was there an alignment in the command module after you left the limb?
Oh, it was a good alignment, the command module. After we got the alignment, the sequence of events that happened, we got the alignment, of course, in the limb, which we thought was adequate. Then we went to this. Someone came up and said, well, now that you got alignment in the limb, let's do this mid-course 7 with Ping's auto, and that confused me. It confused me because when we went to the technique we used before, the spacecraft drove to an attitude, auto attitude now, because I had already gone to an attitude which I thought was the burn attitude, close to it. I went to put the Earth on the Y line of the COAS and got it pretty well squared away, and I knew that the vehicle wasn't going to move far from that attitude to make a mid-course correction for corridor control. So after I got it there, then we went to Ping's auto, and as we were maneuvering there, I had 5018 flashing on program 41 after I got to 41. And I was in that hold, and I kept pushing pro because I wanted to see the numbers change. I was still maneuvering manually until I got to the attitude where I thought that we should be at. Then I went to auto, then I hit pro, and then the vehicle maneuvered, and it went off and canted the Earth off at an angle, but it never nulled the attitude air needles.
Two of them.
Roll and yaw. The pitch was null. And then I was confused because it had canted it off about 8 degrees, I'd say. Then I thought to myself, well, have I got everything correct here? Is everything looking? So I asked Fred to go over the switches to see if this was correct. And the vehicle looked like the computer had just drove it right over there and held it right there.
5018, the numbers and all numbers look great. It was at the attitude. There wasn't any question about it.
Well,
But
my
the air
question
needle
was-
said it weren't. But the DAC was happy.
How did you get from P40 to 41? Did you do
Re-enter the program.
Did you just do VERB 37 to 41?
Yeah.
And where were you in P40 when you did this?
I was in I was 5018. I was 5018, re-enter the program. They call it, I'd have to re-enter the program.
You didn't do a VERB 34 and then go to RU and then,
No, I think it went to 3741.
okay.
Now, I was really, we had a lot of time, we were there early, so I asked the ground to find out, if they could figure out what was wrong or why it happened this way, or maybe there was a switch out of configuration. And meanwhile, I went back to add hole, and then what I try to do is to fly the needles, to null them out to see where it take me, and if I remember correctly, it took me over to, the roll was the opposite direction, or the Earth was canted the other way, about the same way. And so I was wondering whether I had some sign reversed or there was something wrong, and finally I didn't know really what to do. And so we finally went back to, I think, the auto position, and then they said burn it nags. So we ended up at an at-hole mode. We went to Ags at-hole and burned it nags.
How far off were the two needles that were not?
They were saturated. That's another thing that was sort of working a little bit.
You hadn't done a VERB 61 or anything?
No, we'd done a VERB 62.
Which is done automatically anyway by the
Yeah.
program.
Yeah, we
We
did.
were wondering if you had overridden that.
No, we did.
No,
62. So, I don't know whether it was something in the procedure. I kept saying, well, I should never have gone maneuvered manually. I kept throwing on that thing, but I've done that so many times before, and I never got hung up that way again, so I don't know what my mistake was. But the other two times it worked perfectly, and this time it didn't.
You guys get any comments on it?
Not yet, we'll have to look at the data.
Can we go back to the sun-moon alignment?
Sure.
Would you have any suggestions on how to improve that alignment?
No.
Let me say, for example, we thought that you should have had a star difference of 5 times greater than what you, well, we thought you should have had a 0.1 degree, and we thought if it gets greater than 0.5, something's wrong.
Did you all check the unit
1.1.
vectors that were in our flight?
Yes, the unit vector for the sun was off by 7/100ths of a degree, and the one for the moon was off by 7/1000ths of a degree.
That
So
would have
that
done,
wasn't
yeah,
the
would have
problem.
done it.
We did check that.
Okay.
So anyway, we were quite concerned that looking at the number that you got, that something was wrong, and I was just wondering if there's anything that you could suggest to
No, the other thing I could suggest was, I wish that I had, maybe had gone through it again. I think it would have been a great experience to do this a couple of times. There might have been something in the technique that allowed itself to be off. The other thing I can say is that as close as I could mark, we were marking in the center of the bodies as they passed through the lines. We did 3 sets of marks on each body. Now, doing it is not as hard as I anticipated. I was very reluctant, as soon as we got the limb powered up and got alignment from the command module, to go to do any kind of alignment, because I knew that if we had a fairly good one and it passed that sun check before, that I wanted to hold on to it. I wasn't too sure whether we could even do one of those things or not. And after, when we had the power finally towards the end, and you said, let's give it a try, it was a lot easier to pitch right along the ecliptic. We got into the Earth's position where we could just pitch up, and in one control mode, pick up the sun and then pick up the moon. And with that stack, we could do that. And I recommend strongly that because you can't see stars in a lot of situations, translunar or trans-Earth, that you might be forced into this type of alignment, where you have to do a alignment like this just to get a course alignment, then to go into auto optics, maybe in the command module to pick up the stars for an auto optics type thing.
His comments are particularly valid if you ever have to do a P51 or something like that. Don't ever expect to see stars or constellations as a whole with the limb attached.
Yeah. If we lost our platform translunar, for instance, in the command module,
you'll see individual bright stars, but the reflection, I guess I don't think, we were almost completely down sun with the optics on that final P52 I did. And the bending had pretty much ceased from the command module. And Jim and I both looked out down there. In fact, when I couldn't see stars, I got Jim to come down there and look. You will not see constellations with lamb attached. The reflection off that sublimator and that one quad just brighten up the whole telescope.
There's no way you think you could get those in a shadow or to any inertial attitude?
I just don't think there's any way.
You'd be wasting too much gas, Russ, too.
Jim maneuvered us 20-some degrees up there, and it improved it somewhat, but still, you know, it darkened the shadow reflection coming off the sublimator, but still it was just too bright.
But my point is, I think it'd be a lot easier to go right into a sun-Earth or sun-moon alignment and get a rough alignment, even though you come out with these figures and you're not too good, because then if you're at the command module, then you can go into auto optics and drive it down and pick up the stars then.
And drive it to a bright star that you can pretty well take it as for face value. Well, that's Altair, I can't see the guard stars around it, but it's the only bright star, and I know I'm pretty close. Put it on that and align it, you're going to have some degree of certainty that that's what you're going to get. I think Jim's point is very well taken.
Two questions. One is, do you feel the sun filter is adequate?
Well, I feel it cuts out the reticle quite a bit. It's adequate as far as viewing the sun goes. You can't do anything without that filter. And it makes a nice disc for marking. But the only problem with the filter, and I don't know how you're going to get around it, is the fact that it just, unless you're viewing the sun's right there and everything else around it is dark. And so you've got to, there's no sense turning up the reticle, it's just not going to work. You know, the reticle is, the light is not valid there at all. Moon and Earth, it's not bad, but.
Okay, did you use the star codes 46 and 50 for the moon and the sun?
Yeah, we sure did, didn't we?
Yeah. That's, I was quoting those numbers based on that.
On the alignment we did, on the sun check we did, and we loaded vectors.
Yeah, loaded.
Were stars ever visible in the AOT?
Only in the moon shadow. There's several things about the AOT. Now, for a P52 in the AOT, the way the docking configuration is located, the docking light, you know, it's that long bar that sits out there with a light on the end of it, comes right down the X line of the AOT when you're in the forward mode. And the light itself is right in the center. It's about the center. And so you get to a quadrant that's dark, except for one thing. The sun's behind you and it's shining right on that bar and that light, and it just lights up the whole area. And so that's a big problem with alignments. Again, sun, moon, something like that, you can use it. We were reluctant, you know, when we were going around the moon, there's stuff before we got there about doing alignment there. I really didn't know just how good we could do one with the control mode and everything like that, but I think now, looking back on it, that you could do a star alignment with the stack that we had in the shadow of the moon. At least to be sure worth a try.
What was your comment where you said that you can see stars in a lot of situations, trans-lunar and trans-Earth? What were you looking for?
The limit windows. We could, at certain times when the venting had quit and we had gotten away from all the debris, we couldn't see constellations in the limit windows.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that light isn't a docking light. I mean, we thought it was, but I understand it's an EVA light.
Is that an EVA light? Well, whatever that light is, in the command module is sticking out the right-hand side, and you can look out the number 5 window and see it out there. And it releases when you separate from the S4B, I think. Whatever that light is, I don't think I've ever heard anybody ever use it. And
Apollo 9 was going to use it.
Well,
They had
it sure does go right in the forward E10 of the AOT if you're in that dock configuration.
I think there was a question on this CSM alignment following Seth.
Wasn't there? No, I've got a question. You tried to apparently use pick-a-pair to get the first star, and that didn't work, so the ground gave you a value.
Picked Rosselhag, that first one, and I let it drive there. Looked in the sextant, there wasn't anything there, and went back to the telescope. I sure couldn't pick out Rosselhag at all. So I says, well,
Then the ground gave you a star, and then it
36
drove to
quarters.
that. Now, did you first identify that in the scanning telescope, or was that in the sextant? when
I
you
went
did
right to the sextant, repeated the same procedure. Took a look at it in the sextant. I didn't expect it to be there, but just in case it was, I looked there, it wasn't there. Went back to the telescope, and I really had to hunt. And there was only one thing that was there. It was just one bright star. It was, well, very dim, but I
A
couldn't.
dim, bright star.
It was a
Yeah.
very dim, bright star. So I drove it, I says, I don't have anything to lose. And Jim was hollering at me that the Earth is getting bigger and hurt. He didn't have a heat shield up there, and looking out these big windows, I drove it in the sextant and marked on it, and drove it to the other one, and same thing. Altair it was visible, but without the guard stars, just as a very dim star. And marked on the second one. And I said, he kept saying, hurry, hurry. And I says, I got a star angle difference coming up. We'll find out if it works. That was all it wrote. But it's strictly due to that limb sublimator, which is down here on the right side, and the quad, which is up here. It's just so darn bright that it just washes out the whole.
Yeah, I think it's pretty important translunar in these missions when we're docked to that limb, that you keep that platform going, and when it drives to those stars, that all you're doing is tweaking up the drift you've got in there, because that really saves you translunar.
Well, or if you're going to power down the platform, don't plan on doing an alignment with stars. Plan on doing a sun-Earth or a sun-moon, that type of an alignment.
Work your way into the stars.
Work your way into the stars that way.
You never tried the sun alignment with a sun filter in the command module?
No, we didn't get to that point. We got a final line, we got the course aligned, and then got the final line. First, I forgot to, I know you all saw it, I'll admit it to everybody. I went into P52 and I got the program alarm which says IMU not aligned. I says, I forgot to set the rest mat flag, the drift flag. And so I went and did that, and the ground is telling me this time, and I said, yeah, I know. Jim was hurrying, hurry.
I think that was the only alarm you got off late, but
Yeah, I guess it was.
which is something new.
Well, we didn't operate very long.
It's another record. That's new. No, I mean it was CMC.
Very short alarm list.
Pretty sure operation. That course docked alignment on the left, I think, is one of the big things that helped us along real early in the game. I'm sure glad we got that in there, as accurate as it was.
At least you got your auto optics in the command module. After you transport,
Well, I'm talking about the initial accident when we transferred the alignment from the command module to the line.
This is right when the power was going off. The oxygen was draining away.
Yeah, I guess I was most impressed by the fact that being brought up in the test world where 3 fire alarms ring around the plant if the IMU heaters ever go off, to where we powered that beast down for that many hours, and it was looking as grim as it did, dripping wet and everything, that it didn't seem to mind not having heaters too much.
We got a new point on the heater curve. You can go at least 80 hours without heating.
Air flight you going
Don't try 81.
Don't try 81, that's what he
Okay, I have one on the, we have several, I guess, in EMS. Dave, you want to?
Since we don't have data on the EMS, can you walk through that sequence, the switching sequence of the mode switch, the normal standby?
We went through the EMS pre-entry check, exactly as it was in the checklist. Okay. And the initialization was done, remember they moved the EMS pre-check to where it was right in front of the initialization, so no more of this, you leave it in the step 5 while you pull the circuit breakers and that type of thing. And we went through the thing. The EMS pre-entry check was completely normal. The 05G light came on, the corridor lights came on, the Step 3, drove down to 0.0, or step 4, we initialized it to step 3, 0.0. And we went through the thing exactly as a checklist, and it checked out perfect. Drove right down there, right down in between the lines. It was just beautiful. And we initialized it with the values from the pad, and we were sitting there with the function switch in entry and the mode in normal at 05G. We counted down to, we got our RT and we went down to 28 seconds. The computer shifted, I think about within 1 second of 05G time to P64, and the EMS 05G light did not come on. And I waited to 3 seconds and went to manual. And this was pretty well verified that normally the V-axis drive going through 4,000 feet a second, normally on the range to go you expect to see between 23 and 29 miles there. It gives you a good hack on whether your CMC is indeed driving you pretty good. And we had 40 miles there. I remember that value going through the 4,000 feet a second, which told me indeed we did start a little bit late.
When the 05G light did come on, did you notice the counter at that time to see whether it was counted?
The range, no, I really didn't. I don't. Was the 05G light burn out or not?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
You didn't see any scroll motion or anything before you went to
No, of course the scroll motion that is almost negligible at that period of time. You don't really get any. But on the way down, we did. I did read out the G meter values, and I checked the EMS, and Jim checked the CMC on down 74 there, and all three of them are right together. So the accelerometer was measured pretty good.
In your debriefing, you mentioned something about quarter verification lights working.
No, I don't think so. I don't remember it. If I don't think the quarter verification lights work. They're not supposed to work.
Yeah.
I don't remember that. If I did, I don't remember saying it. And looking back now, I don't think they work.
Hey Jack, you said you were in entry and mode switch was normal.
Normal.
Do you know what cue you used to move the mode switch to normal?
3 seconds after. The cue is, the way we work it is that you get RRT time plus the 28 seconds, which is 05G time from the pad, okay? And you get 3 seconds after that, and then I also had the cue, the computer did count up to 05G, and it did switch programs. So that says we did hit 05G time, and the EMS had not started, and it was 3 seconds past
that point,
and we went to manual.
Did the scroll seem to work? Did you get a trace?
Yes, we got a trace. Now, I do want to comment on the legibility of the scroll trace. It wasn't very legible. Was
there any skipping?
I don't think there was any skipping, but it was a very narrow thing, and you really had to look at it to see it. I guess I would like to recommend that somehow if you could broaden the trace out, it would be make it a little better. I think you'll get the scroll back,
yeah, right.
It was a very narrow trace.
Is that the new scroll in there? Is that still the old soap scroll?
It's a new scroll. Did you get a chance to correlate the range to go potential lines with the range to go counter?
Yes.
In between points, did you get a chance to
I
correlate?
did that a couple times on the way down, and we looked good.
It correlated pretty good?
Yeah, it looked like the GNN was a completely GNN entry, and it looked like the GNN was hacking it.
Okay.
We had a fairly, we didn't have a second entry. We didn't have a second G load. It was pretty much
It was a
shallow entry, and the thing, it hit its D0 pretty well. It overshot slightly up to about, I don't know, 395, somewhere in there, and then pretty well leveled out at 40. And right after we went V-circular, V-circular just within 1 or 2 seconds of the pad time. And the entry from there on was about 3 Gs, sometimes 2 Gs up in that area, and it was fairly constant, and it matched with the range to go with potential lines. And I felt it control inputs were very smooth, and I thought it was, I forgot the 05G and the EMS roll switches, by the way, in the switch to manual, but I felt it was the first entry I ever had. It was the best one. I was very impressed with the whole spacecraft and the control mode. I thought it was well.
Any other question? On anything?
During any part of the mission, did you ever find any of the DSKY or VITA entries to be burdensome? That is, requiring an awful lot of key punching or having to monitor a rapidly changing display?
Well, that's sort of a loaded question, I guess. We didn't utilize the DSKY as we would have normally done during this mission. I'd say, if you're talking about the way the mission was actually flown, no, it was not. I guess if you're talking about the normal Apollo 13 mission as we've trained many, many times, there's plenty of places there where you can probably simplify key punching and things of this nature.
I think our most rapid period of key punching was on the command module during entry, where we entered entry programs at a fairly late period and went through them, and we didn't have any problems there.
No, where we did use the DSKY, like moving the antenna, the radar antenna, and everything, worked just right.
And one word, did you ever go into a PTC mode before the ground commanded you to?
No. We had 3 PTC modes. One was this holding position, then holding position for an hour, then moving 90 degrees, holding position for an hour. Then the other 2 were, the second was an auto mode, and the third one then was a manual mode. And each time we, on the long burn, we waited till the ground gave us the rates that were null. They could watch that. Then we went into the PTC yaw maneuver. And on this last one, we try to yaw the rates as much as possible. And then we told them we were going to go into the yaw maneuver, and they said fine.
Did you attempt the PTC mode before the 90 soak and then 90 one?
Not to my knowledge, because we weren't really too sure just exactly what attitude we should be in at the time until they were determining what kind of a PTC mode to go to. I we might have been drifting, but I'm not too sure.
I think that you just did one to the 90 and you were held attitude, you were in Ping's attitude hold.
If I recall correctly, we maneuvered to the PTC attitude, then we got in this mode to get it started, then we powered down the ball, and we were doing that one on the DSKY.
We had a weather dip down move there somewhere.
Yep, here after 1.4, pretty good then. We loaded it to the 5 day later.
Right. Was the ACA used in the Ping's manual rate command mode for maneuvering the command module docked to the LEM alone at any time?
Okay, let's see. You got pings, at hole.
Right. Verb 77 active verb 76. Using the ACA.
I'm not so sure. We went into an at hole when we were going towards gimbal lock. So the answer was, yeah, we went into 77.
I was saying, did you ever maneuver? Did you go from one place to another using that? You didn't do that?
No, I think we did. I think that towards the end, after we stopped it a couple times and maneuvered, I think that actually some of that maneuvering was an at hole. Rate command, rather. I'm guessing now because I really don't.
Okay, that was done after I left.
Yeah, oh yeah, you had left, and I wasn't really too concerned with fuel because I recall that I was only concerned with gimbal lock.
He was listening to me scream from the command line.
Stop! I started the maneuver, and then so I went to an at-hole mode to stop it, and I think I went to 77. Then I did some more maneuvering, and I think that I might have done some maneuvering in at-hole, but rate command. but I'm not.
Didn't the ground then tell you to get out of it and you did a verb 76 to get out of it?
And well, we finally ended up in ags. The ground was always telling me to go to ags, and I'll tell you, the ping's minimum impulse with a combination of LEM and command module is the only way to fly that vehicle. Unless you go, unless you don't know what the command module's platform is, and you have to stop it right away.
Hey, why did the ground want to go to Ags? No, I mean, there was not a reason. What was that reason?
And why did you want me to go to ags when we left the vehicle? Why don't you just leave it in pings at hold when we jettison the vehicle?
The main reason was our procedure that we'd set up to that time had it configured that way. You have to leave it to ag.
Okay.
Well, I did, man, I had to be told.
It's novel because in most of my training, I sort of avoided ags maneuvering. And at one time there, I was trying to ags pulse train maneuver, and I just don't like it. I just feel that it doesn't have the controllability with the pulse train that you do with the ping's minimum impulse. And the vehicle combination now with the command module and the LEM is not that difficult to maneuver. It responds to the attitude controller on all three axes. And I wanted to stay there. And I thought maybe I was misinterpreting at the time, but I thought someone was coming up and saying, go back to ags all the time. And I didn't want to go to ags.
No, as a matter of fact, I guess it was a kind of a controversy going on around, 45 over it's told, hey, look, go to Ping, what the hell are you in Ags for? You know, we didn't know, you wanted to stay in Ags and what the situation was, see?
I want to stay in the one that gave me the best control. But
I think you even mentioned that. I think you had some air-to-ground transmission about it.
yeah, I was kind of curious why people were pushing the ags.
What it turns out, I guess the Ags people had a louder voice than the Pings people.
Wasn't me.
No, it wasn't these guys right here. It me on that.
But anyway, that particular combination can be maneuvered very easily.
No, I think the reason was, Jim, was it wasn't decided at all that you were going to power up the LEM IMU. So no procedures discussions involved that at all. Everything was done with the ags. And they didn't want to deviate from all that planning.
Well, I also heard that you figured the fuel out with ags too, I guess. And it had been a different figure with pings. So.
There's only one other thing that I didn't mention, that after service module SEP, we did get some venting from the area of the umbilical, the command module. And this, of course, was hard for star identification for a while. And then after LEM jettison, we had a constant pitch-up torque in the command module. And this was what started us for gimbal lock when we got everybody screaming for about we were going to gimbal lock. And I hit the direct switches. It gave us a nice big pitch down. But we always had a constant pitch-up torque. It always wanted to pitch us up. And I was constantly, just one zap pitch down would correct it, but it wouldn't take too long to where it would start to pitch up again. And I kind of felt maybe it was due to some still residual venting down in the area of the umbilical.
You seen that data yet, John?
Now we're going to look at it.
Hey, Jack, we understood that Jim was saying is that the service module that was going away was venting to the umbilical. The way you're saying is that the command module.
The command module.
This was after SEP.
Because after SEP, the service module had gone. We'd gone to.
No, this is after LEM SEP.
Yeah, well, it was after the command module, service module SEP first, where we went to the LEM jettison attitude.
Yeah, but I was still controlling there. So
yeah, you were still controlling. But remember, I had you come down and look for stars, and you remember the particles shooting out there where you're trying to see.
Yeah, we had something in there. But then after, I think what Jackson, after LEM SEP, there was a tendency for the command module to pitch
up, because we'd gotten rid of the LEM. I'm sure that the LEM had on there had taken care of that. He was controlling it. He was in attitude hold. I'm sure that whatever torque we had was accounted for by the LEM thrusters. But when we hit the SEP, I was looking at the LEM, and of course Jim doesn't have any window, so he was looking at the ball, and he says, gimbal lock. I hit the pitch down direct switches. And but I was in minimum impulse from the rest of all the autocoils were in minimum impulse. And one minimum impulse was more than enough thrust to do it, even with a single rein. But there was still just a constant small residual pitch-up torque.
How long did this last?
Till capture, all the way through capture, till we got captured.
When did you activate the water boiler on command line? Or just,
We activated it when the checklist called for it, which was at 30 minutes, EI minus 30.
Hey Jack, do you recall if the scroll was lit, because it's on a different circuit breaker than the power?
Then the EMS main A, main B?
Yeah.
Boy, I don't know. I tell you, I've got.
Maybe that's why you didn't see the trace.
That could be.
Well, wait a second, we ought to know that though, because we were watching the moon set and we had a darkened spacecraft, didn't we? Wasn't that one of the items that?
Yeah, I think we did have the.
Well, I'll tell you the best thing to do, we get the scroll, let you look at it, see if that's what it looked like to you.
Okay.
I mean, just, the line too
Yeah, we
wide,
don't know that,
too
though.
faint, is what it
Yeah,
was.
you'll be able to.
Usually you have to
We
cover
got
that
the thing,
EMS
you
up.
can see it,
It's
we gotta
not-
look at it, see if it looks normal to us, and then you
At
can look at
nighttime,
it and see
you
if
just
that's
gotta
the
cover it
impression
up.
you had when you saw it. I think that's the best thing to do.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and do that.
Just the roll, you
Scroll,
know,
we'll take a look
the
at
roll
it.
attitude and the incandescent lights on the scroll are different circuit breakers. I just wondered if you turned them on.
I tell you, I've got the list of circuit breakers. I didn't push any circuit breakers in that weren't called for on the pre-entry checklist. Mainly because I knew you all had figured power on these circuit breakers being in, and I didn't push anything in that wasn't called for.
I'd like to get back to the AOT for a second. When you were looking for stars in the AOT, did you ever try any detemps other than the forward detemp?
I tried them all. That AOT went around in circles there for a long time. Every time, in most places, when the AOT maneuvered, it would maneuver to a position whereby you're looking at parts of the command module. And every time you did that, you would just wipe out your vision. In fact, that was the way we always checked the hydrogen venting back there in the service module. Towards the latter part of the flight, we had a lot of venting, and we whipped the AOT around and looked back after to see that thing venting out the back.
I took pictures, if you're interested, what those views are through the AOT with a Hasselblad, and I shot an Earth rise over the service module another time, showed it with the sequence camera.
Sounds like song, bird rise.
Yeah. Well, I had nothing better to do.
Did you notice any bending oscillations when the command module was docked to the limb, particularly during the transfer from the limb to the command module?
No, very rigid. Controllability was rigid. I didn't notice anything that was, it was very steady when I transferred back into the command module. I didn't notice any motion. You were in the seat, you didn't notice it.
No. In fact, at this time, of course, the LEM was still kind of controlling us, and I don't remember hearing any unusual thruster firing. It was a pretty stable combination.
Did you pull the onto the radar latch and let it go out of the forward detent position of the AOT?
Well, we pulled the rendezvous radar and unlatched it so we could maneuver it out of the forward detemp by means of the computer. It maneuvered quite well.
Go to the lunar surface position with
Now we went to 283, 000, 283.
Any other questions?
Okay, very good. Guess that'll terminate the debriefing here now, and the other thing, I guess we're looking for a report from you.
Yeah, I've got.
And there's one thing I mentioned about this, talked about this yesterday. The tank is in there.
Oh, you did find a sign in the
You see the
photographic
tank?
analysis that
Yeah,
the tank is in there?
yesterday, yeah.
Oh, good.
The tank's in there, so it might be interesting there. Looks brown. One question I guess I want to ask of you. Do you recall seeing anything that was brownish or stained and whatnot?
On the engine belt, we saw the brown stain.
Yeah, I know, I'm talking about where
No, it was
the
all-
tank probably should have been.
All bright Marlar that we could, that I could see.
Couldn't detect any faintness of any.
Wish I could.
Incidentally, I forgot to mention that, but right after the door went or whatever happened there, it only took to give you an idea of the magnitude of the impulse, it only took a single pitch thruster about a 10-second firing to stop you and reverse your rates, but to get back to the right attitude. So the total angular impulse put in wasn't very big.
10 seconds of thrusting though.
Just one thruster. You only had one pitch thruster going, but that was not only to stop the rates, but to reverse them and get you going back towards the attitude, the desired attitude.
This thing on Quad C, it interests me. We didn't record any isolation valves. We had two helium talkbacks barber pull, which we reset.
Wayne Murray went through all that with me, and I don't understand all the barber pull bit, but he said the indications you reported were okay for the combination of the isolation valve closing and the loss of the bus. I mean, that's the way it all works or something.
Well, I recall some time ago trying to reset those two secondary propellant talkbacks, and then they said, well, you can't do that, we've lost main B.
Right.
Yeah.
And, but I don't really...
That's right. You couldn't, and the combination of the indications you read off were correct for the combination of the thing going shut and losing the bus.
Okay, I tell you what we'll do. We'll go ahead and get that explained by Worry to you, so just so you understand what went on there.
But the secondary ones didn't bother me because I knew that was normal because those are the end-powered state is barber pull.
Right.
So, I was really concerned. I really never had thought I lost Quad C. Really, I thought I had it, and the reason I wasn't getting much because you do have to do like Jim does. If you want effective pitch, you got to use the THC. And I used the direct coils, and I knew that it didn't have the effectivity that the THC. I just didn't use the THC.
Okay, I guess the only other thing, there might be one or two other things we'll get back with you on in case something that comes up on that, okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you, gents.
Hey, Don?
Yeah.
Let me ask one question.
Go ahead.
Based on the experience you've had looking back at the operation, just from your interface with the flight hardware and that testing, do you think you're going to be having any suggestions that changes in that area?
You mean the crew interface with hardware testing on the spacecraft?
Chamber runs, your SIG runs, CF square?
I don't think so, Charlie. Looking at the training that the crew has to do and looking at their interface with the spacecraft, I don't see how the crew could possibly do any more direct interfacing with the hardware. We have to, now, hindsight's great. Now, when I look back on it, I realized that we had problems, defueling that oxygen tank, then I'd say, well, gosh, why didn't we really go in there? Maybe I should have gone up there and said, let's take a harder look at it. But I don't have the knowledge to do that. We have to rely on, on the guys that really know those systems to do that testing. And I don't see where we could possibly do any more hardware interfacing than we do. I think the altitude chamber test, I think CDDT, and maybe some of the power-up tests that we do is the only way we can really get acquainted with the equipment.
I guess one thing I might ask along those lines, do you think you were informed in sufficient depth of what was going on? I guess really probably more than what maybe Charlie's thinking of.
Well, let me talk for myself to let Jack and Fred mention. I think I was. We certainly were informed on the sheet tank problem. We had been told about the problem with tanking the number 2 tank on the oxygen. The other thing I can say is that I'll ask them, well, what is the problem? What can we experience in flight? And they'll have to come back and say, well, it's not going to work, or it's okay, and that's what we have to go by. And I don't think we're ever going to change that because you're the people that are going to tell us whether that's a go situation or not, and we have to go by that. The crew number 1 doesn't have the time, but number 2 doesn't have the knowledge really to go into depth on the various systems to really look at that and yet get the same training done that they have to do in just a normal operation. Now, maybe Fred and Jack have some other.
No, I think that's my same feelings. In fact, if anything, in some cases, maybe people tried to give me too much information, more than I really wanted. So I'd say I got everything that was important, certainly.
The only time when I thought maybe we could have had some more briefing, and this was, again, hindsight, because I didn't think about it at the time, was that when we were coming up that day, we were coming up to pitch up for the service module to look at it, we were planning on jettisoning it, then we were going to photograph it. If someone had just briefed me on maybe what was inside that module, just where the tanks were, just to refresh me, I would have been looking for that at the time. Instead, when I pitched up, all I saw was a large amount of Mylar, and I really wasn't too sure what I was looking at. I just saw that the whole side, to me, was missing, because I didn't expect it. And
Did you expect the side to be missing? Did everybody feel that that side might be missing, or was that a surprise to you all as well as to us?
No, that.
I'm sure it was the same way. If we'd have been smart enough, we'd have asked them.
Yeah, that's what I said.
We didn't think that the sign was going to be gone
The
either.
pressures didn't want that, would have been surprising if the panel was there.
Yeah, well, if someone had told me that, you expect the sign to be missing, well, then when I pitched over, maybe it would dawn on me about saying, well, how about the tanks, where are they, or something like that. But I never even gave it a thought until I pitched over and saw that thing.
I don't think anybody had admitted it, even if they thought it.
As far as what Jim said, as far as information goes, of course, the backup, as part of the backup crew, at the time that the tank problem had come up with a servicing problem, I missed that briefing, so this was all new to me. And as far as the only thing that makes me uneasy is when you remove windows after you do altitude chamber. I don't like that at all. I'll go on record as saying that is something that really makes me nervous. And because when you do altitude chamber, you verify a configuration, and then you go ahead and change windows, that immediately nullifies that test as far as I'm concerned. We did remove window 3 in the command module.
Well, there was a few windows removed on the lab, I won't mention to you.
I know about it, But at that time, I thought you were going to be flying the lab.
Boy, it's a little different when you're choosing the other foot.
We'd get near those windows, and this is one reason we thought prior to what we do, we had a limited amount. I didn't know how much oxygen I'd use out of the surge tank to pressurize the water in order to get water. So we had discussed that perhaps we might think of popping an OPS to raise the pressure in the two vehicles such that the command module regs would never activate. We'd use all that oxygen, save all that oxygen. And then we said, no, things are going okay the way they are. The winters are cold. We won't raise the pressure one iota. And we discussed a lot of that stuff about using plus oxygen, water, battery power, the whole works. But we decided we'd leave well enough alone.
I think it requires a good briefing on the CMPs of the structure of the LEM. When Jack started putting his feet against the side hatch, it just he's back in the command module again.
Okay, good enough. Thank you, Joan.